There's a feeling most men have spent years protecting. Not happiness, not joy. Something quieter than either of those and more persistent. Something that requires maintenance. Something that, if the conditions around it are carefully enough managed, can sustain itself across years and sometimes across decades as a reasonable facsimile of the thing it is pretending to be. He called it peace. It was fear with a better posture. The distinction matters because the two produce opposite outcomes over time. Genuine peace is generative. It provides the stable interior from which a man can move toward difficulty, take genuine risks, be fully present in the relationships and contexts that matter, and absorb the inevitable losses and reversals of a real life without being structurally destabilized. The relief of avoided fear produces none of this. It produces only itself, maintained by the continued, successful management of whatever the man has identified as the condition of its presence. That management is the tell. Genuine peace does not require active maintenance. A man who is actually at peace does not need to think about which situations to avoid in order to remain at peace. He does not need to calibrate which conversations are safe and which would disturb the equilibrium. He does not carry beneath the surface of the calm the ongoing monitoring of the environment for threats to the calm's continuation. Peace is not a state that requires protection. If it requires protection, it is not peace. It is the absence of whatever the man was afraid of, temporarily achieved. And the monitoring is the fear continuing to work even when nothing is currently wrong. Most men who are living in this condition do not experience it as ongoing work. The monitoring becomes so automatic, so integrated into the background processing of how they move through the world, that it stops registering as effort. It feels like the natural state, like the appropriate and mature relationship with a life that has reached a certain stability. The calibration of which contexts to enter and which to avoid, which subjects to raise and which to leave alone, which risks to take and which would disturb what has been built, all of this feels like wisdom rather than like the constant labor of a man who is keeping something at bay. But the cost appears in what the management makes unavailable. In the ceiling, it places on the depth of relationships that cannot develop past the point where they would require the man to be genuinely exposed. In the work that stops reliably at the edge of genuine risk, producing competent and careful outputs that never fully carry the weight of what the man could put into them if the putting required less of him. In the ambitions that have been calibrated to a scale that challenges without threatening. In the conversations that approach certain territories, and then, through the subtle but consistent application of redirection, never quite arrive there. The life that this produces looks, from most angles, like a good life. The man inside it is often, by any conventional measure, doing well. What is consistently absent is the specific quality of aliveness that only genuine engagement that carries the actual risk of the actual outcomes it is pursuing, produces. Not the performance of engagement which the managed life can produce convincingly. The thing itself, the specific felt sense of being fully in contact with one's own existence rather than conducting it from a careful distance. This absence is felt but rarely named clearly because naming it would require examining the condition that produces it. And examining the condition is itself a version of the thing the condition was designed to prevent. So the man finds other explanations for the flatness, maturity, the natural consequence of a life beyond its earlier intensity. The reasonable adjustment of expectations that a man makes when he understands how things actually work. These explanations are not dishonest. They are just not accurate to the actual source of what they are explaining. Here is where the neuroscience adds something concrete rather than decorative. The nervous system that has organized itself around threat avoidance does not distinguish between genuine threats and the absence of whatever it has learned to associate with threat. It responds to both with the same physiological signature: the activation of the defensive processing that reduces the experience of danger. When the avoidance is successful, the nervous system registers the success as relief. That relief is a genuine neurological event. It is not manufactured. It is not performed. It feels exactly like what the man believes it to be. Because in neurological terms, the feeling of having avoided a threat and the feeling of being genuinely safe produce overlapping states that the conscious mind cannot reliably distinguish from the inside. What distinguishes them is not the feeling in the moment. It is the trajectory. The nervous system organized around threat avoidance requires increasingly precise management over time. The category of things that trigger the defensive response tends to expand rather than contract, because the avoidance prevents the corrective experience of discovering that the feared outcomes are survivable. Every avoidance confirms the threat status of whatever was avoided. Every confirmation makes the next avoidance more likely. And the life gradually narrows in the specific way that a life organized around not encountering its own fear must narrow, until the space in which the man can move freely is significantly smaller than the space available to him. The man in genuine peace moves in the opposite direction. His relationship with difficulty expands over time because his direct experience of surviving difficulty accumulates, and that accumulation is the most reliable, available information that difficulty is survivable. He becomes, over time, more willing to enter the situations he would previously have avoided, because his evidence base is genuinely different from the man who has been avoiding, he has been encountering. And what he has encountered has taught him something that cannot be taught by argument or by philosophy or by the accumulated wisdom of any tradition. The specific embodied knowledge that his own experience of difficulty does not destroy him. This is the territory where the two conditions diverge most sharply and most consequentially. One produces a man who expands, the other produces a man who maintains. And maintaining across years is a form of contraction so gradual that the man inside it often cannot see the trajectory because each individual calibration looked reasonable at the time. The recognition of this pattern when it arrives tends to arrive not through analysis, but through encounter, through the specific experience of a situation that the management failed to prevent, a relationship that reached the edge of what the careful equilibrium could contain and tipped over it, revealing in the spilling what had been held back, a loss that the management had not accounted for and could not absorb without restructuring. A moment of genuine contact with another person, sometimes in the most ordinary circumstances, that produced the specific quality of aliveness the managed life had been substituting for, and that revealed, by contrast, exactly what the substitution had been costing. In that encounter, something is briefly visible that the management usually keeps out of view: the gap between where the man is and where he could be, between the life being conducted and the life that could be lived if the conducting were replaced by actual inhabitation, between the maintained calm and the genuine settledness that the maintained calm has been impersonating for years. The gap is not comfortable to see, but it is the most useful thing the man has seen in a long time. Because the gap is information. Specifically, it is information about the location of the work that the management has been preventing. The work is not in fixing the circumstances, which is where most men's first instinct points after this kind of recognition. The circumstances are not the source of the condition. The nervous system's relationship to what it has learned to treat as threat is the source. And the nervous system does not update through the improvement of circumstances. It updates through experience, through the direct encounter with the things it has been predicting would be dangerous, and the discovery in real time rather than in anticipation of what they actually are. This is why the movement toward genuine peace requires something the relief of avoided fear was specifically organized to prevent: contact, not manage proximity, not the careful approach to the edge of the avoided thing followed by the practiced retreat before the edge becomes exposure. Actual contact. The full arrival in the conversation, the relationship, the creative risk, the confrontation, the grief, the uncertainty. Long enough for the nervous system to receive the information it has been denied, that this is survivable. The survivability is almost never in question for the man reading this. The things his management has been keeping at bay are almost certainly not genuinely dangerous in any objective sense. The conversation that would require genuine honesty, the relationship that would require genuine vulnerability, the creative work that would require genuinely putting himself in it, the grief that would require genuinely letting it move through rather than converting it immediately into something more manageable. These are not threats. The nervous system's categorization of them as threats is the artifact of an earlier environment where the categorization was more accurate, persisting past the conditions that produced it, because the avoidance has been so consistent that the recategorization has never had the opportunity to occur. What moves the recategorization forward is not understanding this intellectually, though the understanding is a prerequisite. It is providing the nervous system with the specific experiences that produce new information, one at a time, in calibrated sequence, beginning with the instance that carries the least cost if the feared outcome occurs, and working forward from there. Not toward fearlessness, which is not the destination. Toward a nervous system whose threat assessment is more accurately calibrated to the actual conditions of the man's actual life, rather than to the conditions of an earlier environment that no longer exists. The practical shape of this is less dramatic than the description suggests. It is one conversation in which the honest thing is said instead of the thing that preserves the equilibrium, one creative output that contains something genuinely from the interior rather than the polished surface version that the management produces. One moment of sitting in the discomfort of uncertainty rather than immediately reaching for the action that would resolve it before it is fully formed. One instance of remaining in the difficulty long enough for the nervous system to receive the information. This did not destroy me. Each instance is small. The accumulation is not small. It is the gradual construction of an entirely different relationship between the man and his own experience of difficulty. A relationship in which the difficulty is no longer the thing to be managed from a position of careful distance, but the thing to be moved through from a position of genuine presence. And here is what the man discovers on the other side of enough of these instances. The thing that the management had been preventing him from discovering, precisely because the discovery is incompatible with the management's continuation. The thing he was protecting against was not as dangerous as the protection was. The feared outcomes, when they occasionally materialized, were survivable in ways his nervous system had not permitted him to find out. And the life available on the other side of the protection, the life in which the energy that was going into maintaining the managed calm is redirected toward actual engagement with the actual content of actual experience, is qualitatively different from the one he had been living. Not louder, not more dramatic, more inhabited, more genuinely his, carrying the specific weight of a man who is fully present in his own existence rather than conducting it from behind the glass of a carefully maintained equilibrium. That is what genuine peace feels like, distinguished from its imitation by the specific quality of its relationship to difficulty. Genuine peace does not require difficulty to be absent. It is present in the difficulty. It is the settled quality of a man who has discovered, through enough direct experience to have made it into genuine knowledge rather than belief, that he can be in the difficulty without the difficulty determining who he is. The managed calm was never this. It was always one difficult conversation away from requiring reorganization, one unexpected loss away from the exposure of its contingency, one genuine relationship away from reaching its ceiling. The man inside it was not actually at peace. He was successfully avoiding the test that would have revealed whether peace was available. The test is available now. It is available in whatever the man reading or listening to this has been most carefully managing. Whatever the reliable pattern of redirection and calibration and the subtle but consistent avoidance of a particular category of encounter has been protecting. The test is not to confront it all at once, which is not the direction the work takes. It is to identify the smallest available instance of genuine contact with it, and to choose this time not to manage the approach into retreat before the contact occurs. What is on the other side of not retreating is not guaranteed to be comfortable. Some of the feared outcomes will occasionally materialize because feared outcomes sometimes do. What is guaranteed is information. Accurate information about what the thing actually is, replacing the anticipated information that the avoidance has been substituting for direct experience. That information, accumulated, is what builds the nervous system that does not need the management. The one that can be in proximity to difficulty without the comprehensive defensive processing that the managed calm required. The one that produces not the relief of avoidance, but the actual settledness of a man who has been in enough of the things he feared to know that he is, in fact, someone who can be in them. That man does not need the managed calm. He does not need the careful calibration of which situations are safe enough to enter. He does not need the ongoing monitoring of the environment for threats to the equilibrium, because the equilibrium is not contingent on the environment's cooperation. His peace is his own, not borrowed from the absence of what he feared, built from the presence of a man who finally went toward it. What he was protecting was never the peace. It was the fear's claim that the peace required protecting. And that claim, examined directly in the light of actual experience, does not survive the examination. It never did. There is a dimension of this that extends beyond the individual man and into his relationships, and it deserves its own examination because it is where the cost of the confusion becomes most legible to people other than the man himself. The man who has organized his interior life around the management of feared outcomes is not, from the outside, an obviously fearful man. He is typically calm, reliable, consistent in a way that people who care about him often describe as a source of safety. He does not panic. He does not overreact. He handles things. And these qualities genuinely serve the people around him in real ways. The children who need a steady parent. The partner who needs someone who will not be destabilized by difficulty. The colleagues who need someone who can be relied upon under pressure. What those same people often experience alongside the appreciation of his steadiness is something harder to name. A quality of not quite reaching him. The sense that there is more of him available than he is providing, and that the more is not withheld through malice or indifference, but through some mechanism they cannot see clearly enough to address directly. The conversations that approach something important and then turn smoothly and without obvious effort in a direction that is easier. The moments of genuine contact that occur and then are followed almost immediately by the subtle reestablishment of the managed distance. The love that is expressed in every functional form and that somehow carries less warmth than the functional forms ought to contain. These experiences accumulate in the people who are close to him and produce, over time, a specific kind of loneliness that is different from the loneliness of being alone. It is the loneliness of being in consistent proximity to someone who is not entirely present, of having significant access to a man while being aware that the significant access is not the full access, and that the full access has never quite been available and may never be. This is the cost the managed calm imposes not on the man, but on the people the man is closest to. They are receiving a managed version of someone they care about, not a false version. The competence is genuine, the care is genuine, the reliability is genuine. But it is incomplete in a way that the people experiencing the incompleteness can feel even when they cannot articulate precisely what is missing. What is missing is the man himself, the unmanaged version, the one who could be disturbed and could show the disturbance and could be in genuine two-way contact rather than the one-directional contact that the management permits, in which the man receives but does not fully let the receiving register, does not let it change his surface, does not allow the other person the specific experience of having actually reached him. Being reached is what genuine relationship requires from both people in it. And the man who cannot be reached, not because he does not care, but because the management prevents the reaching from registering as reaching, is a man who is unavailable for a genuine relationship regardless of how consistently he is physically present and functionally engaged. The recognition of this is often what finally makes the managed calm unsustainable, in a way that the man's own discomfort with it had not. A man can sustain significant personal discomfort indefinitely if the management is effective at keeping the discomfort at a level that does not require confrontation. What is harder to sustain is the direct and clearly expressed experience of the people he loves, when they are honest enough and the relationship is solid enough that they cannot quite get to him, that they feel the wall even when they cannot see it, that the intimacy they want from him is available in form but not in substance, and that the gap between the form and the substance is something they have been patient with for a long time, but that they are finding increasingly difficult to simply accept as the way things are. This kind of honesty from a person who matters is a different category of encounter than the ones the management was designed to handle. Because the management was designed to handle threat, and the honest expression of longing from someone who loves the man is not a threat. It is an invitation. And the management, encountering an invitation, does not know what to do with it except to treat it as though it were a threat, which produces exactly the distance and the careful redirection that the person expressing the longing was describing in the first place. This is the specific and sometimes devastating moment in which the managed calm finally reveals its cost in terms the man cannot reframe as anything other than what they are. Not a limitation of his situation, a limitation of his availability, of his capacity to be the person the people he loves are asking him to be, not through any inadequacy of feeling, but through the specific incapacity of a nervous system that has organized itself so comprehensively around the prevention of genuine contact, that it cannot distinguish genuine contact from the threats it was built to avoid. That recognition, when it lands with sufficient clarity, tends to produce one of two responses. The first is defensive. The man finds ways to explain the feedback that locate its source in the other person's unreasonable expectations, or in the inherent limitations of what intimacy can provide, or in the philosophical position that complete transparency is neither possible nor desirable, and that a certain necessary privacy of interior is simply what mature relationship looks like. These explanations are not entirely wrong. They contain genuine truths, but in the service of defending the management, they are being used to avoid the specific and accurate piece of information that the feedback contains, which is that the management itself is the problem, and not any of the things the explanations identify. The second response is to sit with what the feedback is actually saying, to resist the reach for the explanation, and to let the thing being described be present long enough to be genuinely examined. To ask honestly whether the person offering the feedback is describing something real about the man's availability, and if so, what the source of the unavailability actually is. This sitting is uncomfortable in the specific way that all genuine self-examination is uncomfortable. It does not feel like peace. It feels like the opposite of peace, like the controlled surface finally in contact with exactly what it has been managing the distance from. And that feeling, that specific discomfort of genuine contact with the self-examination that the management was preventing, is the most direct available evidence that something more than the management is possible. Because the discomfort is not destruction. The man is still here. The feared contact with what was being avoided is occurring, in this case, in the form of the honest feedback and the genuine examination of what it is pointing at, and the occurrence is survivable. More than survivable, it is if the man stays in it rather than reaching for the explanation that would end it. The beginning of the specific kind of information that can actually change the nervous system's categorization of this territory. The territory is not dangerous. It was never dangerous. The management was protecting something that did not need protection from a threat that was not actually present. And the cost of that protection, now visible in the faces and the expressed experience of the people who love the man, has been significantly higher than the feared outcomes the protection was designed to prevent. This is the full accounting, not just what the man has not been available to himself for, what he has not been available to the people who needed him to be there in the specific way that full presence requires. The accounting is not made to produce guilt, which is not useful here. It is made to provide the clearest possible picture of what the continuation of the management actually costs, so that the comparison between the cost of continuing and the cost of changing is made with accurate information rather than with the selective information that the management was producing. The cost of continuing is the life described in this video. The maintained calm, the reliable competence, the functional love without the full warmth, the relationships at their ceiling, the work at its edge, the man in his managed equilibrium, sustainable indefinitely, producing everything a life is supposed to produce except the specific quality of having been fully lived. The cost of changing is the discomfort of the transition, the specific discomfort of allowing the feared contact to occur rather than managing it into retreat. The adjustment of a nervous system that has been organized around avoidance learning through direct experience, that the things it has been predicting would be dangerous are survivable. The period in which the management is being gradually withdrawn and the man is more exposed than he has been, more genuinely in contact with his own experience and with the experience of the people around him, before the new equilibrium the one not organized around the prevention of genuine contact, has been sufficiently established to produce its own stability. That period is real and it is uncomfortable, but it ends. The new equilibrium, once established, is not fragile in the way the managed calm was fragile. It does not require the ongoing labor of threat monitoring. It does not narrow over time. It does not produce the quiet and persistent loneliness of a man who is present everywhere and genuinely available nowhere. It produces something that may, for the man who has spent years in the managed calm, be entirely unfamiliar in its specific quality, the settled experience of being actually here, in the relationship, in the work, in the difficulty, in the ordinary texture of a day that is not being conducted but genuinely inhabited. The experience of being the man whose presence others can actually feel rather than the ghost of a man, however competent and reliable and genuinely caring, who has been conducting his life from behind the glass of what he told himself was peace. It was never peace. Peace is not the absence of what you feared. Peace is the presence of a man who has been through enough of what he feared to know that he is capable of being in it. That man has always been available. The management was the only thing preventing him from showing up. Remove the management. He will be standing there. He always was.